Most of the time, it's a huge compliment to say this game is so realistic. But sometimes, real isn't the best goal. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 realistic gameplay mechanics that suck. Starting off with number 10, picking up trash and doing menial jobs, like in No More Heroes 1, or Shenmue, or Mafia. For most of us, playing video games is a form of escapism for our mundane lives. We get to do these fantastical, exciting things that would normally be completely impossible in our day-to-day. And there's tons of games out there that are simulation-based, like American Truck Simulator or the various farming simulator games. And these games aren't fantastical, but they're still good, and they have mechanics that keep players engaged. They're a certain version of real, so to speak. And that's not what we're talking about here today. What we're talking about today is stuff like picking up garbage in No More Heroes 1, where you're just wandering around a barren open world, picking up trash, like because there's trash or like people littered and you're cleaning. You know, the thing that you're supposed to do instead of play video games, clean your room. You're entering a virtual world to wander around and do for fun. Or Shenmue's like forklift job. Like, in all seriousness, that forklift job is hilarious. I remember when Shenmue came out and I got it, I was like, it's so realistic. This is amazing for like a minute. And then I kept playing it. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to beat this game. I stuck it out, and I did beat Shenmue, and I was disappointed by the ending of it. And I still am, despite the fact that I've beaten 2 more Shenmue games, one of which was supposed to be the actual ending. Or like, the other one I said was Mafia. Moving the boxes back and forth in Mafia. I don't know, I was actually like getting Shenmue flashbacks when I was doing that. I was like, really? You're gonna make me move boxes? This is a video game. They're just brain dead jobs. They require like no brain power to accomplish, and they seem like they just take forever. I will say, Shenmue's probably the worst of all of them. The trash thing in No More Heroes and the box thing in Mafia, they're both like one-offs. The forklift job, oh my god, does it go on forever. There's wanting to add some realism to a game, and then there's adding a job that you don't actually get paid for, except for you have to do it to progress the game. Adding that to a game. That's what the Shenmue thing is. And number 9 is being forced to obey the traffic laws. Now, Mafia, we're mentioning again here, but there's the Getaway as well, which is actually even more strict. When Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, there was just something so fun about how you just drive around and do whatever you wanted. You could drive around this living, breathing city and ignore the traffic laws because you were a criminal. Crime is fine by your standards, and traffic violations aren't real crime. Of course you're going to ignore the traffic laws. And after that, really most open world games stuck to that formula. Basically anything goes as long as you're not running over a ton of civilians or bumping into police cars. It's whatever. A couple of games bucked that trend though, like the original Mafia, where you could get pulled over for speeding. Like, it wasn't that bad. It was a speed limiter button, and going too fast in those old 1930s cars just usually led to you losing control of the car. I've never driven one of those cars, but I assume it's because of a more accurate physics simulation with the way that Mafia's reputation is. The Getaway on the PS2, though, that game is strict. There is no speeding. Running red lights is a big no-no, and you have to stay on the right side of the road. And when I say the right side of the road, I mean the left side of the road, because the game's in London. And honestly, the game, for its time, surprisingly realistic. Another PS2 game is kind of obscure that was actually worse about it than The Getaway was Steambot Chronicles, which you didn't even get the option of avoiding traffic. You wanted to go anywhere in town, you just lined up. Nobody likes traffic. It's one of those necessary evils you have to accept in modern life. But video games are not modern life. They're a virtual world where you can literally program it to do anything. And number 8 is cleaning up. Is there anything more miserable in life than having some free time to yourself and you go, gotta clean! It's a mess in my house. Nobody likes chores. I mean, it's in the name. Chores. That word means, let me look it up, an unpleasant but necessary task. That's the meaning of chore. So they toss some chores into the game for you. An unpleasant but necessary task in a virtual world where technically nothing actually has to be necessary and is intended to be pleasant on at least some level. Like, most games just keep things clean for you, because why would you want to think about that? But there's a few games out there that make you spend time cleaning. Like, okay, I'm gonna give it to Power Wash Simulator for making that fun. Power washing, however, in real life is very satisfying, and the game does a better job making it satisfying than real life even. Okay? I'm talking about tedious cleaning, like simulation games that force you to clean up, like any given sim in a sim game. They're total slobs that can barely keep themselves clean, let alone clean up after themselves. They leave dirty plates, they leave garbage, they break the oven and the toilet. I don't even want to know what size turds are coming out of these guys. And it's up to you to force them to actually clean up after. Like, you have to basically parent an entire town of adults. Or even in the recent Cult of the Lamb, where you're hapless little cultists just poop everywhere. Yeah, at least the Sims, like, back up the toilet and you have to fix the toilet. These guys just poop everywhere. And the more poops lying around, the more likely your followers get sick and die. And at first, the only way that you can deal with is running around and picking up poop. You're the cult leader. Shouldn't you be able to force some other cult member to do that for you? Apparently not at first. And number 7 is the run meter. Ooh. Nobody can move like most video game protagonists. Like the Doom guy. He can run at like 100 miles per hour all day and all night. And he carries around like 8 guns while doing it. Some of those guns are of unrealistic sizes too, to be frank. For most of us, trying to move around like that would leave us exhausted after, I'm going to say an hour, but I think I'm being a little kind to myself here. Like, being able to sprint around like a madman is just fun. I enjoy doing it because I can't in real life. I can sprint like a madman for, about as long as a video game protagonist can in one of these games. Like, the Grand Theft Auto games are pretty infamous for this. You can only sprint for a few seconds before your guy gets all winded. It's annoying, but like, I want to give probably the best example with the first Evil Within main guy. He moves at a kind of brisk walking speed, but when you start running, it's like leisurely. He's not like fast, but he's also really not in shape because after like a second or two, he's like wheezing and about to keel over. I think Sebastian is probably not in great shape, but it is a mechanic that's pretty annoying. And number 6 is realistic jump mechanics. Like, one of those essential elements in video games, jumping. Like, video games have a very, very long history of using platforming to introduce some kind of a challenge to an otherwise normal-looking place. And to be clear, most video game characters have a vertical leap that makes Michael Jordan look silly. Most games that include jumping at all give you a pretty generous jump height, along with completely impossible things like double jumping or being able to change direction mid-air. I'm looking at you, Sonic the Hedgehog. But some games try to be a little more realistic. Instead of being able to jump like you're on the moon, games like Morrowind make it so you're only capable of a little hop at first, if that. A lot of the Souls games, even more brutal. Like, you can only jump after running start, for instance, and then you barely get any air. The worst of all are the jumps where you can't control your trajectory. Obviously, having air control makes no sense at all, but it's frustrating to have a game like Castlevania where you're about to jump directly into a bottomless pit and you just can't do anything about it. There's tons of games out there with just wimpy as hell jumps, and while they're much more realistic than the alternative, it's a lot more fun to have a good vertical. At number 5, spending time with friends. Now, that doesn't sound like a bad mechanic, right? Spending time with your friends in real life is awesome, but in video games, it's a chore, an unpleasant but necessary task, but only necessary because the developers made it so. For our example here, I want to talk about Grand Theft Auto 4. When you're just cruising around doing missions, causing chaos, like, this is a great game. All Grand Theft Auto games are. But then your cousin Roman calls and he's like, "Hey, Nico Bellic." I mean, he sounds kind of like that, but not that bad.
The Bellic cousins are here in the land of opportunity, and we are making trouble for any fools who get in our way.
If you say so.
I do say so, man.
Anyway, you got to stop everything and go play this tedious bowling game for 10 minutes before you go back to doing, the things you're playing the game for. And if you blow them off, it pisses them off, which makes your friends less likely to help you. So you got to go, even if you don't want to. It's like being invited to a party that you'd rather not attend, but you're obligated to for one reason or another. And that's too close to real life. Yeah, don't invite me to anything ever. I'll come over when I'm good and ready. Yeah, at least in Grand Theft Auto 4, there's a workaround, though. Just answer the phone and agree to do whatever they want, and then ghost them. For some reason, they don't get mad at you for that. But don't do that in real life. It does not make people happy in real life. At number 4 is realistic rain effects. So, in most games, rain is just an environmental effect, not really anything more. Doesn't have an effect on your gameplay, Makes things a little harder to see maybe, depending on how heavy the rain is. But hey, Breath of the Wild, right? Rain has got a whole bunch of negative effects in that game. Like, hey, you got a torch? No, you don't. You got a fire that's not under something? Yeah, no, you don't. But the fire stuff is very secondary compared to how big of a problem climbing becomes. Normally, you can climb up just about anything in this game, but when it's raining, it's usually too slippery to climb anything. Climbing is one of the primary ways you get around, too, so it's something you want to be able to do all the time, but when it rains, you're pretty much stuck. All you can do is either try to wait it out, find a place to rest, which, by the way, easiest way to find one is fires, and like I said, fires, unless they're under something, are gonna get put out by the rain, so there's way less of them, and rain takes a long time, so a nap is probably the best way to do it. It's realistic, sure, but it's a drag. Like, especially if you're halfway up a mountain, it starts raining. It's like, you're gonna go right back down this mountain. Thanks, Breath of the Wild. Cartoon-ass, cel-shaded Breath of the Wild trying to be realistic. At number 3, encumbrance, aka weight limits. This is a thing where few games really ever try to be realistic, because like a normal human can't carry around as much stuff as somebody in Fallout, Skyrim, or The Witcher 3. Like, you end up hauling around dozens of weapons, hundreds of crafting ingredients. Somehow you have multiple suits of armor in your pocket, and your main character isn't even breaking a sweat. Like, all these games have some kind of weight limit, but it's really high, not realistic at all. But Demon Souls, on the other hand, pretty restrictive. Unlike every other game that came after it, this game actually counts all the stuff in your inventory towards encumbrance. It has a separate item burden meter that's maybe a little more forgiving than the equipment meter, but not forgiving. Like, having too many healing items can put you over the weight limit. And keep in mind, these things are called grasses. They're literally just a bundle of grass that you eat. And just having a lot of that is too heavy for your guy. It was an interesting idea, but the execution ended up being more annoying than anything else. And number 2, real time limits. Like, in real life, we're always on the clock. Life is a finite thing. Daytime is a finite thing. We know. That's part of what makes video games so relaxing. You're free to do what you want, when you want, without having to worry about deadlines or time limits at all. Oh, except for in a lot of games. So, yeah, when they do include some form of time limit, especially like one that covers the entire game, it can be real nerve-wracking. Like, Dead Rising is probably the most famous with its constantly ticking clock and brutal deadlines, which force you to always think about how much time is left when you're getting around that mall. The original System Shock had a similar time limit too. You have 7 hours total to beat the game on the hardest difficulty, so you have to move quick. Another classic RPG, Fallout 1, actually also had a time limit, 150 in-game days. That's how much time you had to get the water chip. And it's more than enough time, but just the idea that there was a limit kind of scared some potential players out of playing the game. I remember that pretty distinctly, actually. People would read reviews and be like, I don't know, there's a time limit on the game. Those are a few examples, but in general, time limits in games can really suck, especially when you just want to take your time and relax. And finally, at number 1 is panic mode. Time limit's pretty bad, but there's nothing worse in games that introduce this, like, loss of control or distortion of control. Like, it's pretty rare, but when they show up, wow, do they suck. Like Clock Tower 3, this PS2 horror game from way back in the day. Every time you get hit with a jump scare or like a stalker gets close to you, the panic meter builds up, and when it fills up, and it always does, usually faster than you would like, you lose control of your character, and you have to watch helplessly as she flails around, totally useless for a few seconds, and either escapes long enough for you to try to regain control, or she just dies. It's basically a roll of the dice what happens when you go into panic mode, and it's so frustrating every time it happens. Now, it is possible to adapt to this mechanic and get used to it, but it doesn't make the game fun. It's just a frustrating idea. Yeah, it's realistic that in a terrifying situation, most people would probably panic, but it's a video game. I'd like to be able to control the character that is an avatar for me inside the video game world. Watching them run around in circles like a chicken with his head cut off and then die, it's not fun. It just sucks. And I'll give you a couple of bonus ones too, short ones, like realistic stealth mechanics, like Left Alive, which is just like ridiculously unforgiving, or Shadow of Rome, where you basically just get no information. You have to trial and error everything. Another one's realistic damage modeling, like Deus Ex, or realistic difficulty in Call of Duty, where a shot is going to kill you, or you end up moving slowly because your legs legs are broken. Super limited fast travel. Like, I'll say Red Dead Redemption 2, but like, probably dozens of games with this, and it's super irritating. Another one, fall damage that, feels as though it is tethered to real-world mechanics. Yeah, I know that this fall would hurt, but don't make it end me. This is a game. Doesn't have to be that real. Then, of course, there are escort missions that have a degree of realism, at least in the context of the world that they're in, like in Dead Rising or Silent Hill 4. Games that aren't necessarily realistic themselves, but the way that your escort sucks so much is pretty much how they would be in real life in those situations. And then there's this one, which I think is a really specifically irritating one, when there's no minimap or navigation assistance. Like, this is an advent in modern gaming I think is very good. I understand that having to figure everything out yourself has some measure of allure to it, but the more games you play, the less novel it feels. I'm looking at you, the sinking city. But that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.